Hello friends, Stub from CorkMB.com here for City Magazine. In the March 2019 issue, I provided 3 great recipes to help you celebrate St. Patrick's Day by cooking with none other than Guinness Stout beer. Today we'll be making a pretty traditional Irish stew. Over in my pot here, I've got a cast iron enameled cast iron pot. That's what we call those things. You know what they are. It's been preheating, we're adding about 4 tablespoons of olive oil. We're gonna let that heat up just a bit. Now I'll say here, a traditional Irish stew calls for the use of lamb. If you don't enjoy lamb or it's difficult for you to find, go ahead and use beef. It'll turn out just the same. You may want to braise it just a little bit more, get a little bit better cut than just stew beef to get the same tenderness that we're going to get out of the lamb. All right, so I said to use the seasoned lamb. So you see I've got my about 1.5 pounds here. My oil's probably not quite hot enough yet, but we're gonna go ahead and put this in and let it get soaked. And because I didn't pre-season this meat, what we're gonna do, well, it is sizzling a little bit. We're just gonna season it in here, and you see I've got different salt and pepper extra here. I'm gonna liberally salt and pepper this meat as we braise it. So there's some nice salts, some nice pepper. And of course, because I've been handling raw meat, I'm gonna rinse off my hands as this is braising, and we're not gonna use this salt and pepper again. So with our lamb for the first step, what we're basically doing is just braising it off and browning it. We're not fully cooking it. So we're gonna get a little bit of the juices and the little bit of fat that's in this meat. Once again, I bought this meat. It was pre-cut for stew. Once again, perfect lamb for doing that. And once again, this is gonna take 3 or 4 minutes depending on how much. If you have a smaller pot or a little bit more meat, you can also do this in stages as well. All right, friends, you can see most of our hunks of meat here, mostly browned. We're gonna go ahead and remove this from our Dutch oven and set aside to get back to. All right, so we've removed our meat. The next thing we're gonna do is add our onions. You see we got a nice kind of simmering pot of olive oil here with a little bit of the rendered slight fat from the lamb. And we're gonna go ahead and saute our onions until they get soft. All right, our onions are beginning to get soft here. Next, we're gonna add our fresh garlic and saute for, once again, 1 to 2 minutes at the most, because, as always, we don't want to actually burn the garlic. We just want to get those aromas out of there as we're stirring. All right, our garlic's been in for about a minute. Next, we're gonna add our seasoning. We're gonna add our little bit of salt, our pepper, and then our flour. And with this, we're gonna stir this around and make a nice, fairly creamy roux. Once again, stirring constantly to incorporate this flour. This flour is gonna soak up a lot of the moisture in here, so we want to stir it constantly. And once again, this is gonna take less than a minute, actually. All right, next is the main ingredient here. So we're cooking with Guinness beer, which means we have to have a Guinness beer while we're cooking. So the beer here is basically gonna help deglaze this pan. We're gonna pour this in and stir constantly to incorporate the little bit of the roux that we've made here. As my pot was maybe just a hair hot, as you could see, when we added the flour, we get a little bit of clumpiness, but no doubt there, we didn't actually burn the flour. So we can stir this around, and we're gonna basically bring this to a simmer with the beer and the roux and the onion mixture. All right, so our Guinness has been in here for about 4 or 5 minutes. You see we're just getting a little bit of a simmer. And you can also see from this overhead shot, we've got a nice thick, we've incorporated this roux well. Once again, you wanna stir this, not every second here, but you wanna stir it fairly constantly to make sure you get that nice incorporation of the roux. Now, our next step, we're gonna bring back the star of the show, which is our lamb that we pulled out earlier. We're just gonna add that right back to the pot and stir it in a little. There we are. All right, and next we are going to add our potatoes and our carrots. And then over top of that, we are gonna add our beef broth. So you can use vegetable or chicken stock here if you prefer. Beef broth, I think, actually does a great thing if you've actually somehow butchered your own lamb or whatever and you have the reserve from that, by all means, use that there. So here, basically what we wanna do is cover everything in the pot. We basically have that done. If it's not covered, you can add more broth or add a little bit of water to it. And then of course our last step is we're gonna add our bouquet garni. And we're gonna go ahead and, I like to just poke mine down in there, right over top. We're gonna reduce our heat to low. and cover this and let it simmer for about 2 hours on low. Probably no need to actually open the lid during this time, especially if you're using a cast iron, enameled cast iron. You should be good to go. If you're curious, by all means, go ahead and open it up, give it a stir during the time if you're, once again, the curious type and a little impatient. All right, see you back here, and well, it won't be 2 hours for you, but it will for me. All right, friends, our stew has been going for about 2 hours. I will say I'm also impatient, like many of you, and went ahead and gave it a check at some point, see how it was going. So what we're gonna do at this point is really just take a little bit of the broth and taste for saltiness. I'm liking where that's at. If you're not, just add a little bit of salt. And now we're gonna increase the heat just a hair and let it simmer uncovered for another 30 minutes. All right, friends, you can see we have a little bit of bubble here. It's been simmering on a little higher heat for about a half hour. We're gonna go ahead and turn this off. It is ready to serve. We're gonna find and dispose of our bouquet garni. And now we are gonna take it over for serving. Oh, look at this beautiful Irish stew we've made with Guinness beer. All right, you can see in there, potatoes are done, the carrots, these onions basically simmer away to, I'm not gonna say nothing, but they are just so delicious in the palate here. So we're gonna take a ladle with some broth, make sure we get some carrots. Now traditionally this would be served in a little shallower bowl. I'll tell you why I don't, because I have a tendency to want to eat so much of this at one time. Hey friends, it is very hot. There we are, our delicious bowl of Irish stew. Fairly traditional recipe. Once again, there's some regional variances. You can add some different things. Recipes online will have you add different things. Don't worry about it. This is a basic recipe. Do what you like with it. Cooking's supposed to be fun. All right, friends, thanks for joining. I hope you have a very happy and healthy and most importantly, safe St. Patrick's Day. However you're celebrating, please stay safe. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to check out all the recipes in SETI Magazine, March 2019, as well as my beer suggestions for the month. Until next time, be nice, be safe, and be happy. Cheers, friends.